All right, guys, welcome back. We're going to be working on the 2007 Chevy Cobalt again today. Um, Today's issue is overheating. Um, I was not driving the car. My daughter called me. Her and Texas Pat are sharing this car right now. She calls me or texts me at about 2 o'clock in the morning and says, "Hey, it's overheating. I'm just going to stay put and, we'll deal with this in the morning." So um, we go and get the car, and one of the first things I check is, do the fans turn on? So I had an issue with the relay system on this car a while back, and the fans weren't turning on. So I bypassed that and put on um, a relay, which I'll show you guys. So there's a relay right there, right here. That relay turns the fans on. As soon as the key gets powered, the fans come on. So we know the fans are working. The second thing I checked is back here, down in this area right here, um, on the water outlet, there is a temperature sensor. That temperature sensor is known for being a pain in the butt and going bad on cars, on this car, and reading false temperature readings. So check that. The sensor's good. It's sensing the coolant temperature. My next thing that I check is the coolant. Let's make sure there's coolant in the car. And what I found out was there is no coolant in the car. Later, I was told that the car got put in the ditch because it lost traction. I do see stuff hanging off of the bumper and, mud inside the wheels and stuff like that, like the car had been off pavement and into some terrain. So I added coolant. There's a reservoir cap right there. So I added coolant to the reservoir cap, and it began pouring out from the corner of the bottom corner of the radiator right here. So you can see that we do have some damage in this front corner right here. And that corresponds with the crack in the radiator. So we're going to pull this front bumper cover. We're going to pull the fan assembly, pull the AC condenser, and pull the radiator out. So I'm going to show you guys a time lapse of what that looks like. All right, y'all, so this car's been wrecked a few times, so I went ahead and just cut straight through, took off all the miscellaneous bolts and mismatched bolts here in the inner fender, connecting everything. We're going to pull the front clip, pull the front bumper cover. All right, so I just skipped through all of the miscellaneous mismatched bolts and all that good stuff. Yes, pulling the bumper cover is required in this case. You're not getting it out through the back. Highlights. You're going to have bolts here that hold the fender and hold the bumper cover onto the fender. You're going to have bolts like little 1/4 inch or 7mm little hex head bolts inside the inner fender well. You're going to have about a dozen bolts around the front. Same thing on the other side with the fender. You're going to have bolts in here. You're going to have bolts in that that fender well, so that that plastic piece that's inside that covers the tire. Across the bottom, be sure to make sure that you disconnect from your shrouds that protect the belts and stuff. Also, you're going to have your push pin clips across the top here. But remember, right here, there are going to be 2 trim buttons. Once you get that plastic off the bottom, there's 2 trim buttons that hold that bumper onto the radiator core support. So I've got all that taken off. We're going to go ahead and pull this front bumper cover. And there you have it. So you have to undo the latch, just 3 or 4 bolts to get that. I think it's 4 bolts to get the latch off, the hood release latch. Undo your brackets here and here. I'll show you guys what that looks like. So you're going to have to undo these retainer brackets here, undo the 3 bolts holding on the hood release, undo your other bracket here, and that will allow you to flip these things forward and pull this radiator. So this is your AC condenser right here in the front, this is your radiator in the back, and it's super thin. So we know the issue is down here. The radiator tank on this end is cracked. So that's what we're trying to get to. All right, guys, so I'm going to move you guys closer for this. Show you that hood latch right there. So one of the things I like to do when I'm taking off a hood latch like this is I get a Sharpie and I just make marks so that I can line this back up, and I'll have to go through the iterations of putting this on, closing the hood, making sure it opens and stuff like that. So just make a quick markaroo there. there. I've already done this, but you can't really see the marks. That way, when everything's lined up, we know when we're in the right position. Incidentally, while we're here, I'm undoing this. If you have to replace the radiator fans on this car, it's the same procedure. If you have to do the AC condenser, same procedure. You got to take the headlights out, take the front bumper out, all that good stuff. All right, so 3 10 mil bolts. Get our hood latch out of the way. Take our core supports off, our radiator support brackets. And we're loose. So we can disconnect the hose here and then disconnect the large hose down here in the corner. There's no coolant in the car, so we don't have to worry about spilling and making a mess. But yeah, you uncouple these. So there's a couple of 10 mil bolts, and your AC condenser actually is kind of hooked to the radiator down here. See if I can get you a shot of that. So down there in the corner, there is a bolt right here. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a bolt right there, and that bolt, you undo it, and then the radiator, or the AC condenser actually slides off of the radiator. So you can see down there, there's a bolt right there, keeping these two together. So you undo the AC condenser from the radiator, separate them, and then you can pull the radiator out. The fans just, kind of hard to see, but the fans just snap into place. There's a snap clip right there. So you stick a screwdriver, flathead screwdriver in there, turn it, and then pop the fan right off. All right, guys. See y'all in a second. Hey guys, real quick, I wanted to give y'all a pro tip, something that I do when I'm working on cars. Sharpie marker and sandwich bags. I label all of my stuff and put my sandwich bags in line in the order I take everything apart. That way, there's no thinking about it. You just put it back together in the order the bags are. And it prompts you in case you lose something or you're like, okay, what do I do next? So these are from the AC condenser that attaches to the actual radiator. Just put it in a sandwich bag, label it, put it in line. All right, so once you've disconnected your fans, kind of popped them up out of those clips, shimmy it side to side, and then move your fan shroud and electric fan back. Undo your spring clamps, get your coolant hoses, radiator hoses off. So I've got this one tucked back out of the way here. There are going to be 2 rigid transmission lines. There's one down here, one up here. There's one way down here. They have a little clip in here. You've got to take this little plastic shroud off. But there's a little clip right there. Pop that clip off. Do not lose that clip, and you can slide those tranny lines out. Make sure you put a catch can underneath there because you're probably going to lose some tranny fluid. All right, so as I said, there's one of these clips on each of those rigid tranny lines that go into the radiator. Do not lose these, but you take a flathead screwdriver. Come on, focus. So you're going to take a flathead screwdriver and just get in there in that notch and push it out to where you can get your hand on it, and then you pull it out. All right, guys, there it is. That is the damage. Apparently a 360 in a slick road into the ditch, and that's why the car's overheating. Couldn't keep any coolant in it because of that big ass hole. So we're waiting on parts. Parts should be in. When they get in, we'll put this thing back together. So while I have this radiator out and I can show you guys, This clip right here, that clip that it refuses to focus on, yeah, that clip right there. So there's two corresponding clips. There's another one right here. That's the two that the fan shroud for the radiator fan falls down and snaps into place. There's a couple of clips for the fan shroud to sit in at the bottom that stabilize it, but those you're gonna have to stick a screwdriver in there and pry that apart so you can pop that fan, so you can pop it up out of there. All right, here on the front, that is one of the two bolts, 10 mil bolts you're gonna have to take out that connect the air conditioning condenser to the radiator. So that's what you're after when you're trying to get this thing apart. All right, hey y'all, so we just got the new radiator out of its box. I wanted to show you guys something. Be sure to remove your caps, and sometimes, the reason I'm bringing this up is sometimes there's like little rubber plugs that go in that hole. That's what she said. Anyway, so the other thing I want to tell you guys about, if you have the transmission lines, which most radiators are going to have transmission lines, make sure you get your fittings off of your old radiator, or make sure that the new one comes with fittings. I have turned in radiators with the fittings and had to go back to take the fittings off before from the auto parts store. So show you guys how this goes in. All right guys, so we're going to show you how that fan shroud goes on. Put it into place on both sides. It's got me. There we go. All right, get on that clip. All right, so there it is, sitting home in its clip right there. It's sitting in the tabs at the bottom. Everything looks good. We're going to connect our lines. Good. All right, so we can slide our condenser into the brackets. It's not all the way in. Still not all the way in. Then we have a 10 millimeter hole down here and a 10 millimeter hole down there, and we'll be good to go. Okay, so we have our tabs fully seated, and down here is that first 10 millimeter bolt. Follow me over here to the other side. We have our tab lined up, and our second bolt is down here. It's easier accessible from the bottom side if you want to give them a shot of that. There we go, right there. Cool. Okay, so move it into spot. Remember, we pre-marked our little areas right here, so everything lines back up. We don't have to line the hood latch. Voila. Radiator supports. All right guys, so we got the front bumper cover back on, and we are going to put in all the little bolts to hold that baby on. We've got like 3 in there. We got another 3 in there. We already got our 4 bolts with washers in at the top. So we got about 20 pieces of hardware to go. Put our lights back in and we'll be done. All right guys. Don't forget to have your beautiful assistant fill up your coolant. And put your headlights back in. Don't forget about your 2 10 mil bolts per side.